Welcome to the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from 104.9. I'm Paul Kretschmer. This is the second of two broadcasts with Dr. Matthew Warschauer, Professor of History at Central Connecticut State University, about the battle over emancipation, including Connecticut.
And if you pay attention at all to this Confederate monument and statue issue, you will know that just probably 3 weeks ago, the House of Representatives voted to have the bust of Roger B. Taney removed from the Capitol Rotunda, right? So who knows what the Supreme Court might have done in this matter. A lawsuit could have come in the aftermath of the war. It could have gone all the way to the Supreme Court, and the United States Supreme Court could have determined there is no constitutional authority for a president to do anything about the institution of slavery. We are reimposing it. And it would have made, now this sounds outlandish, but it's entirely possible. And Lincoln, of course, knows this. And so he devotes himself towards the end of the war to get this legislation through, to get it through the Senate, to get it through the House of Representatives. And you know that this is the first new amendment that has been passed in a generation. Right? And he's got to push through the 13th Amendment, making slavery and involuntary servitude in the United States completely dead. And he's got to get not only naysayers in his own party, because not the entire Republican Party, they're not all abolitionists. And one of the key things that you need to know about abolition and emancipation is that they are not synonymous. They are not interchangeable with one another. Emancipation is the release of all of these enslaved people and making them free. Abolition is the same thing, except abolition is also devoted to some level of social and political equality for the formerly enslaved. Emancipation doesn't promise that. That's why you get the 14th, the 15th Amendments that follow. And one of the things that occurs in the midst of the war, and this is one of the big problems when you're dealing with the history of the American Civil War, is we want to think that it was the mighty moral North versus the terrible immoral South. And it's just simply not that simple. It's far more convoluted, it's far more conflicting, it's far more problematic than that. Connecticut was beside itself in terms of the battles that occurred right here in our own state, right here in this room, right? Over the institution of slavery, over the question of even going to war with the South. There are plenty of people in the Democratic Party who did not want to go to war with the South, and they said, listen, slavery is legal, there's nothing you can do about secession, let them go, right? So Lincoln had a serious problem on his hands, right? He had a problem with his own party. He had a problem with the Democrats. The Democrats are split into two wings, peace Democrats, who they become known as Copperheads. Hence, the title of my talk was, Lincoln, Copperheads, and Steven Spielberg, right? So all of this background is merely to get to, I'm sitting in a movie theater in 2012, and I'm watching the movie Lincoln. And Spielberg does something that only Steven Spielberg can do, and that is make, 3-hour movie? Make a 3-hour movie about the minutia of politics. Nobody else could pull it off, right? Because he got Tony Kushner to write the screenplay. He got Daniel Day-Lewis to play Lincoln, who does a brilliant job. The only person who could possibly have done it better would be Howard Wright, right? So, he makes an entire 3-hour movie just about all of the backroom dealing and the moving back, and this is the key. There is so much backroom maneuvering and dealing and double dealing that's going on behind the scenes to get the 13th Amendment passed. It is by no means a gimme. Lincoln has to use every one of his talents to get, as I said, not just Democrats to cross over, but members of his own Republican Party to cross over and to support this change in the United States Constitution. So, I'm sitting in the movie theater, and when the climax of the movie comes, they are sitting, they're filming, and they've got the House chamber there, and it's raucous, and it's rowdy, and it's loud, and they go for the roll call vote. And they say, Connecticut. And the representatives stand up, and one says, aye. And another one says, aye. And the next one says, nay. And then the next one says, nay. And there's people jeering and cheering, and I'm sitting there going, whoa, wait a minute. Wait. There is a problem here. Like, okay, I just got to say this. I literally wrote the book on Connecticut and the American Civil War, all right? Okay? All right? I was serving as the co-chair of the Connecticut Civil War Commemoration Commission, and I'm thinking, I think I might have known something about that if that had actually been done. I may just have researched that. That can't possibly be right. And so, come on, I wrote the book. Right? I even created the damn emblem for the commission. It's like, come on. So, what's the problem? The problem is this, right? You can't see this very well, but this is the Congressional Globe, all right? If you've ever heard of the Congressional Record is today's record of everything that goes on in the United States Congress. It looks at the House, it looks at the Senate, it records all of the speeches, it records all of the resolutions, all of the votes, everything. The precursor to this was the Congressional Globe. The precursor to the Congressional Globe was the Annals of Congress, right? So the Congressional Globe comes into being in about the 1830s and runs through the 1850s, 60s, and then it becomes the Congressional Record. The beautiful thing about the Congressional Record and the Congressional Globe is that, you can see the book that it's in. These are now all digitized, right? It's a beautiful thing. When I did my doctoral dissertation, I was using the Congressional Globe because I was going through looking at literally 2 years of House and Senate debates. So I would go to the St. Louis University Law Library, down into the basement. They had them all on the shelves. I would pull like 15 volumes down with the 3-year index. And I'm, going back and forth, and I'm photocopying this and photocopying that and trying to figure it all, putting it in a big binder, color coding it. About 3 years after I finished my PhD, the Library of Congress digitized it, and now you can do a friggin' keyword search. And I'm like, come on, man, right? So, but the Congressional Globe is this fantastic document that you can look at. And so what did I do when I left the movie theater? Well, not immediately, but the next Monday. I go into work, I pull up the Congressional Globe through the Library of Congress memory collection, and I go, all right, I got 38th Congress, 1865. I got to look at the vote that occurs on January 31st, 1865, and see who voted how. And so what you have here, it's affirmative, yeas 119, nays 56, and 8 not voting. And then it lists by alphabet of each member who voted yes, who voted no, who did not vote. And at the bottom there, it says during the roll call on Mr. English and Mr. Ganson voting aye. Well, who's Mr. English? James E. English, the representative from Connecticut, from New Haven. He votes in favor. All the other members of the Connecticut delegation vote in favor. This they note in particular because it says, voting aye, there was considerable applause by members of the Republican side of the House, right? So the Republicans are cheering and clapping for the Democrats who have crossed over, because out of these 119 votes, there are only 10 Democrats that cross party lines and vote in favor of the 13th Amendment, making the Emancipation Proclamation the law of the land. Right? So this is quite significant.
That concludes this 2-part series with Dr. Matthew Warschauer, Professor of History at Central Connecticut State University, about the Connecticut battle over emancipation. For further information, call us at 860-346-1049. The opinions expressed are those of the participants, not necessarily those of the staff or management of the station. I'm Paul Kretzmer on the WIHS Journal, Public Affairs from 104.9 WIHS.